Hi, welcome back to the channel, and we've got a very special vlog for you today because it is the last and final of our spectacular 10 walks between the Negresco Hotel and the Chapelle St Hospice on Saint Jean Cap Ferrat. But it's also the beginnings of our French Riviera challenge in our CITROEN AMI. So we're going to do the walk and then we're going to take you on a spectacular ride through Saint Jean in the Ami, into Beaulieu, into Villefranche, and we're going to take a look at the Christmas decorations. So lace up your steering wheel. It's going to be a fun ride. So today's route takes us from here, the Plage des Fossettes on Saint Jean Cap Ferrat, right the way round to the Chapelle St Hospice.
Oh baby, I love your madness. It's so incredibly beautiful. Oh, you shine like gold, so selfless to all.
Nice things about this particular section of the walks around Cap Ferrat is you've got lots of wildlife and nature, and you've got lots of signs telling you what you can see, which birds you can see. Oh look, that looks like a robin. The rouge gorge, the grand perrault des jardins, the fauvette tête noire male, the messange bleu, and the roqueque noir. No, the rouge, that's really hard to say. Rouge, I can't do it. Rougec noir. The rougec noir. It's definitely improving my French.
Some would say I'm insane in the riding away.
And then just like that, you're out of the pine trees and suddenly you're on the open Mediterranean.
And give me your freedom. To pieces, yeah, I need it. Won't you bend?
Come across another one of these signs and you can see where we're headed, which is a very old postcard of the Pointe de Saint Hospice at the end of Saint Jean Cap Ferrat.
Life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces, yeah, I need it. Won't you bend them on me?
See another one of these plaques here, this one devoted to dolphins. Of course you can come out from Villefranche on a little boat and take your chance at spotting a dolphin, or even maybe is that a baby whale, a cachalot? Looks a bit like a whale, doesn't it? Not very good at this nature stuff, me. And as ever, as you come along this path, of course you can nosy in between the trees and behind the fences, and you just catch glimpses of some of the incredible villas here. But on this section of Saint Jean Cap Ferrat, there is no more incredible villa than La Fiorentina. Fiorentina is another one of those that lays claim to being the most expensive house on the planet. It certainly was sold, I think, at one stage for £500 million. It has gardens of 30,000 square meters. But the most incredible thing about La Fiorentina, leaving aside the fact that it played host to Elizabeth Taylor and John F. Kennedy and Richard Burton, is the story of the woman who bought it in 1939. Because in 1939, La Fiorentina is bought by a woman called Lady Kilmore. I say Lady Kilmore because that was the name she was given by her friend and neighbour, the writer Somerset Maugham. Her name was actually Lady Kenmore, or that's how she ended up. But when she started her life, she was called Enid Lindeman, and she was born into the Lindeman wine empire in Australia, so she had a bob or two. But age 23, she marries a man age 45 who has an awful lot more money. He is a man called Rory Cameron, and together they have a son called Rory. More of him later. But they marry, and she has all the luck in the world, because 2 years later he dies and he leaves his entire fortune to her. She is now perhaps one of the most desirable socialites in the world. In her mid-20s, she's worth a fortune. She's very good looking, and well, I think you'd say she puts it about. So much so that there was a story at the time that somebody bet her that she wouldn't dare sleep with an entire regiment of soldiers, and she said she did. And it was a soldier who was her second husband, and he lasted about 2 years. But luckily she didn't give him all her money. In fact, she gave him none of her money, because he didn't have any money. In fact, he left 289 quid. But then her luck improved, because her third husband was, I think, a shipping magnate called Marmaduke or Duke Furness. And Duke Furness was worth an absolute fortune. Sadly for Enid, she did sign over some of her money to him, and he took control of their lives. Apparently it was absolutely horrible to the kids, and he had a dog put down. He died. I think again within about 2 years of marrying her. So we're now at 1939. She's incredibly wealthy, and she comes here and she buys La Fiorentina. Again, she didn't have much luck, because, well, the Second World War's just about to break out, isn't it? But anyway, she buys La Fiorentina and she turns it into this incredible place to live. She then finds, unbelievably, a fourth husband who is a duke. He is Duke, I think, Duke Kenmore, but he's 21 stone. And the doctors say that if he tries to have sex with her, it'll probably kill him. But anyway, he does have sex with her and promptly dies. Not straight after the sex, I should point out, but he's another one who dies very quickly. And interestingly, when he dies, she is pregnant. Presumably it was his. And the Duke's sister pleads with her to have an abortion, so that the Duke's sister's son can become the next Earl. And she does it. But this is a lady who led an incredible life. She had a fleet of Rolls Royces in Kenya. She was part of the Happy Valley set. She had a pet cheetah, of course she did. And she had affair after affair after affair. But she is the person who really put La Fiorentina on the map. But actually, in a way, it wasn't just her, it was her son Rory. Rory was a bisexual playboy who, of course, had inherited a fortune from his mother and never needed to work, and he became very sort of successful at doing up houses, but he didn't do it as a sort of business. He just did up the houses that he loved. So he became quite an influential interior designer. And interestingly, at La Fiorentina, I came across this photograph, and it's an infinity pool. Now, infinity pools are 10 a penny these days, but this, I think, is right back into the 40s. I think he made this infinity pool, 40s or 50s. And when you look it up, Rory Cameron is the man who is credited with inventing the infinity pool. I think he was a bit of a card. Somerset Maugham once bought some piece of antique furniture or something from a shop, and he had Cameron come round to have a look at it, and Willie said, oh, tell me, do tell me what you think, Rory. And Rory just looked at him and said, Willie, it's got to go back. I always think it's so magical when you get to here, because you get your first look at Paloma Beach.
Just do what you want with me.
And you can see over there Saint Jean village in the distance, and right up at the top of the hill there, Villefranche, where we began one of our walks, and which is going to figure later in this one in another story.
I give you my everything. Some would say I'm insane.
This villa just up here over the bridge has always intrigued me, because it's got fantastic artworks on display. In fact, I think that is a sort of Alexander Calder. Do they call them mobiles in the garden? I think they do. Now, lots of the big villas here acquire art pieces. There was one over there that used to have a giant gold tortoise in the garden. They're not always of the best taste, I have to say. But this villa has got some exquisite pieces.
Some would say I'm insane in the right and the way, but I just love to play in your fun and your games. Always hungry for more, that's just how I was born. Take me somewhere I don't know, and give me your freedom. Whoa, you love me to pieces.
And Paloma Beach looks a bit desolate today, but trust me, in season, this is an absolutely glorious place to come. It's quite an expensive beach restaurant, and there used to be a lovely little pier that jutted out here, where famously Posh and Becks, avoiding the press, had dinner at the end of one evening, all by themselves. No paps, obviously. None, absolutely none.
Need it, once you're pandemonium, life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces.
So when you get to the end of the path here, you have no choice but to come down to the beach and cross the beach just up here to the steps, where we can head back onto the road and head towards, I'm going to say it one more time, the Chapelle St Hospice. We should have a sing-along. But we are almost there. We are almost at the end of our 10th spectacular walk that began 10-12 weeks ago in the centre of Nice at the Negresco. Check out all the others. There's some lovely walks on this playlist.
Pandemonium.
Have no fear, folks, when we embark on our French Riviera challenge, it doesn't mean we're going to stop walking or stop looking at the history of the Riviera or things like that. It just means we're going to be able to cover a lot more ground and hopefully get some lovely cinematic shots. And to that end, I want to thank you all for being so generous and supporting the channel along the way. We did manage to buy the other week for the car a GoPro camera, and that all came out of the money that you've sent over the last 6 months. And we're hoping we might be able to get another one, because I think if we can get two different angles from the car, we're going to get some really impressive shots of the whole Riviera. So if you'd like to contribute, you can just hit the link, the PayPal link in the description below the video. As my mother used to say, she always used to say, as the little boy wheeling to the sea said, every little helps. But it really does. You get to the top of these stairs, oh, the birds, take a left, and that's in the direction of, shall I say it again? The Chapelle St Hospice.
Give me your freedom. Whoa, yeah, to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Once you're pandemonium, life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces. Yeah, I need it.
It's a good workout, today's walk. Anyway, when you hit the road here, take a left and carry on around to the, what's it called? The Chapelle St Hospice.
Give me your freedom. Whoa, yeah, to pieces.
This section of the cemetery has always intrigued me because it contains, I think, the graves of 90 Belgian servicemen who died in World War I. And I remember first coming here thinking, but was there a battle here? How did they end up dying here? Were they defending Cap Ferrat? None of it seemed to make any sense. And then recently I discovered what I think is the answer. And I think the answer is that Villefranche, the old King of Belgium's residence, where we began the walk a few weeks ago, one of the biggest villas on the Cap. Well, I think when the king died in 1900, it was sort of left. And then in the First World War, it was turned into a Belgian military hospital. So what I'm guessing is that these were soldiers who were brought back from the front line to try and recuperate and recover, and sadly never did. And just in here is a wonderful cemetery, and like all these fantastic French cemeteries, they're always in the best locations, so do have a nosy into them, because apart from being fantastically atmospheric, you often will get the very best views. And lo and behold, when you get to the end of the cemetery, this is the view. And so, finally, after 10 weeks, we arrive at the Chapelle St Hospice. And you know what? It's closed for refurbishment. But the Madonna, the big Madonna without the big boobies, she's still open for business. Now, the amazing thing about this Madonna, which stands at 11.4 meters tall, by the way, is it was initially commissioned by a sort of rich Nice trader. I think his name was Auguste Gall, and I think there's a Rue Auguste Gall in Nice now. And I think he made his fortune in olive oil. And he commissioned this because his prayers, he said, were quite literally answered. I mean, maybe he prayed for a really good season of olives, or for the olive stock to rise, and it did. But unbelievably, his original idea was to put this on top of the tower. Now, if you think it's out of proportion here, just imagine, I think, what it would have looked like if it had gone on top of the tower. Thankfully, the military intervened, because, of course, there are lots of military lookout points here, or there always were. In fact, there are still some, because they thought it was just going to be a kind of sitting target for people out to sea to know exactly where they were. And so, for many years, Madonna was stuck in a garden. It wasn't any old garden, it was a garden belonging to a man called Mr. Menier, who'd made his fortune in chocolate. There's a very famous theatre in London now called the Menier Chocolate Factory, which is actually a theatre built in one of the old chocolate factories. But eventually Meniers were overtaken by American chocolate bars. But Mr. Menier did one good thing. In 1937, he returned Madonna, and I think he paid for her to be put alongside the church. I love her. So that's the end of the walking section of this video, but it's not the end of the video, because what we're now going to do is head back down to the car, the quadricycle, the urban mobility object, which is going to transport us over these next weeks and months across the whole of the French Riviera, where hopefully we're going to see more places like this, quirky places, interesting places, strange places, and also meet some interesting people along the way, because I've got some people I'd like to introduce you to. So that's the vehicle that's going to take us, and what we're going to do now is get in it and give it a little test drive around the wonderful, beautiful roads of Saint Jean Cap Ferrat. And by the magic of television, we may even be able to transport you so that you can see the Christmas lights as they come on. So outside the snow is falling and everyone's calling my name. It's time to get in the Christmas mood for the last section of this video, because after all, this is the last video before Christmas. Can you believe it? I know, me neither. So come on, let's get in the Ami and find out who has won the competition, which name we have chosen for our quadricycle. Mr. Boo, fancy meeting you here.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Have you been sat in the car all the time I've been doing that exciting walk?
All this time.
Oh. So, Mr. Boo, before we take everyone to the exciting Christmas lights of Saint Jean and Beaulieu and Villefranche, we've got to reveal the winner of our Name the CITROEN AMI competition, haven't we?
Yeah.
Did we get a lot of entries?
We had thousands of entries.
We did have quite a lot, didn't we? I was surprised. And have you managed to whittle them down?
Yeah, it's taken a while because there were so many entries, but we've whittled it down to about... Well, here are my favourites. So Sheridan suggested Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim, very seasonal, Christmas and that. Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim.
And you're Tim.
Oh, I'm Tim, yes.
And the car is tiny.
That's true.
Paul said Hillary. Maureen said Madge.
Madge? Why Madge?
Maybe Madonna, because you've just been to see the Madonna.
Oh, yes.
I
didn't get that.
She maybe got it from the future.
Yeah.
Linda said Dolly, because it looks like a Dolly mixture.
Mm-hmm.
The Queen of Cups said Dinky Doo.
Dinky Doo. Mm-hmm.
Paul said Hilda, after your Auntie Hilda.
Oh yeah, me Auntie Hilda. Made good chips, me Auntie Hilda.
Simon said Auntie Bowie.
Auntie Bowie, that's after the defog stuff that we've been using.
Yep.
Quite like that, Auntie Bowie. Quite like that.
Cheryl said Eeyore.
Eeyore.
Because it's grey.
And it goes slow.
Yep.
It doesn't go that slow. It's only because I drive very carefully. Old lady driving.
Andrew said the Petite Merveille.
Oh, he's a little marvel.
Me So Hungry said Bubby.
Bubby?
Jörg said Smurfette.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a kind of blue and, again, small.
Yeah.
Vanessa said Tina, after Tina Turner and our steamy windows.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bradwell said Chitty Chitty Bum Bum.
Mm-hmm.
Mark said Orton, after Joe Orton.
Yeah.
Judith Ruman said Millie, or Gilda.
Millie or Gilda? What's our top 3, Mr. Boo?
So, I think in third position, Daytriker suggested SpongeBob.
Okay. SpongeBob is third.
Quite a few people, including Roman, suggested Princess Grace.
Which I quite liked. But I thought we might have problems diplomatically when we pass through Monaco, which we do quite often. So we've decided not to go with Princess Grace on grounds of good taste, because obviously this is a channel that tries to purvey the finest of taste.
And we don't want to curse the car.
No.
So our winner...
The winner is, so this is the name of our Citroen Ami for our French Riviera Challenge, is...
Elton!
Elton! And who came up with the name Elton?
Richie Swimwear.
Richie Swimwear came up with the name Elton. Richie Swimwear, I think, is in Fort Lauderdale. Is it Fort Lauderdale or somewhere lovely and glamorous and American and Miami-ish? But thank you, Richie Swimwear. The car shall forever be known as Elton. Our Citroen Ami is called Elton. So, folks, we've now got a car. We've got, well, it's an urban mobility object. We've got a name for the car. We're all set for our fantastic French Riviera Challenge for the new year. But now let's have a bit of fun, because let's now, by the magic of television and our fantastic GoPro camera on the roof, take you through the Christmas decorations of Saint Jean, Beaulieu and Villefranche-sur-Mer.
Corner, coming up just around the bend. Holiday couldn't be here sooner. Holiday for family and friends. And we've got pine tree, pine cone, evergreen, mistletoe, candy cane, Santa Claus, a gingerbread woman and a gingerbread man in a gingerbread house and all. Christmas is just around the corner, coming up just around the bend. Christmas is just around the corner, coming up right down the line. Chestnuts roasting on the burner. Everybody knows it's Christmas time. And we've got Frosty, Rudolph, Snowball, Snowflakes, cookie dough, and that old Scrooge. Firewood, fireplace, sugar plum, jingle bells, and Santa's little helpers too. Christmas is just